you're not worried about a building burning per se if it has sprinklers, because you know there's something there to mitigate the risk that you have. When an agent signs on with a broker, that's one of the things that they should be considering. Is their broker connected? Is their broker knowledgeable? What does their broker know that is going to be beneficial to them in the grand scheme or over the long term?
And we're back on the MHP Exchange podcast. I'm your host, Frank Rizzo. And today, for the first time in MHP Exchange podcast history, we're going to do something a little different. We do not have my partner, Eric Busuttil, with us. So I am doing this show solo for the first time after over 40 episodes. And so I'm going to ask everybody who's listening not only to bear with me as we do this, because I'm going to be talking to myself for a little bit, but also, right, if you like what you hear, please subscribe at the mhpexchange.com. Go to iTunes or Spotify, rate the show, and give us your feedback. We love to hear that. But the MHP Exchange podcast brought to you by the mhpexchange.com. And today we have a show that's a little bit different, but we're going to cover a lot of topics real estate related. And we have somebody that is going to be joining us today who is really, really, I think, a dynamic, special speaker and brings a wide range of industry knowledge. His name is Corwyn Melette. He runs Exit Realty Low Country in Charleston, South Carolina. He's a realtor. He runs a group of 14 agents, and he's dealing with, like everybody else, and this is where it relates to us, business uncertainty, things that happens, and how he kind of addresses those situations with his team, and super successful with it. He runs a podcast and he runs a radio show in Charleston called Exit Strategies, which really gives some insight on the market, on how people should look at creating financial wealth and position themselves for growth. I've had an opportunity to speak with him on multiple occasions. He's a dynamic speaker with a great industry knowledge, and we're super appreciative to have him here today. So with that, I'd like to welcome Corwyn Melette to the program. Corwyn, how are you today? Good day, Corwyn. How are you today?
I am incredible. How about you, Frank?
I am doing very, very well. I'm super appreciative for you to be on this program because I think this is going to be a really interesting, different type of conversation that relates not just to people looking, in the MHP space, but people who are looking to create financial freedom or have a business where they're looking to deal with certain uncertainties that you might find in the market. And I think that you're somebody who can touch on those topics and show how you've kind of patterned a way of success to get, to get you to really to be at the top of the game in a challenging market in Charleston, South Carolina, because I know, right, from what I've learned about the Charleston market, and I'm based in Staten Island, where we have 4,000 transactions that happen during the course of the year with 2,000 real estate professionals. I mean, you've gotten to the top of a game in a market where I think there's like 7,000 transactions per year, but there's 8,000 agents, right? So they're twice as competitive as we are here, and you've still been able to grow. You've still been able to be successful, and you've still been able to had time to give back, to teach people about financial strategies and how to become successful in real estate, which is amazing. So again, I will tell people, you really want to pay attention. How are you today? What is going on, Corwyn? And I'd love to get to your, recipe of success.
Well, Frank, look here, I tell people I'm an open book, man. If I have experienced something, been through something, then I'm typically willing to talk, give whatever insight, share whatever I can about it. If it helps somebody, then great. Sometimes want to save people sometimes the pain that you've been through, Sometimes you just want to educate them on what to expect as they, take this journey in entrepreneurship.
So, and that's an interesting point because I've had the opportunity of training, whether it's real estate agents, working as an instructor, as a teacher, as a trainer, and you've built out a team. And when people come into real estate, they have a you know they have a different perspective. Some people come in that they want to they want to learn, or they think they want to quote unquote try real estate, right? I know that's and I would always, when I was always at the class and teaching people on, you'd find someone who was a fireman or a a fireman or a policeman, and I would ask them, how comfortable would you feel if your partner said they don't wanted to try being a policeman, right? And everyone's like, I wouldn't be comfortable at all, but people want to try real estate. But you've built out a team of 14 people now in it.
Hmm.
And I'm sure you've had agents come in with different reasons or reasonings for
Hmm.
being there. Like, how do you manage that? How do you set expectations? And how do you help them create a business plan for that?
So that's a very good question, Frank. So the expectations, we have to establish what it is that we expect. So sometimes, and one of the things that you kind of, circled around is that people get into the business themselves and they don't have the proper expectation from the industry. Social media has made it very easy for agents to, quote unquote, promote themselves. But the reality, all they're doing is just, hey, I'm out here doing whatever. And people make an assumption that because they see this person, put a post or something on social media, that they're actually being effective and they're productive. And the reality is that is not the case. Many agents that you see in that pattern where they're occasionally, whether it may be daily, posting, this, that, day, and the third, all they're doing is just trying to find someone to call them, but they're not proactive in their search to find people to call. Because that isn't it. Social media, people see it, okay, wonderful, great, you're doing great, have at it, and that's it. But when they really want to, transact, when they're ready to transact, they're going to reach out to the agent that is most accessible to them. They're going to reach out to the agent that's most knowledgeable about what their situation is. That's the person that they're going to try to get to. And typically they get to that person word of mouth, not through social media. So agents are missing the boat. So they have the wrong expectation. We got the TV shows that show agents showing three houses and getting $1 million check. That no, that's not real life. I remember
Not really.
I
Yeah.
used to watch $1 million listing. I loved it because it was entertaining to me for a couple of reasons. One, because I knew what the market really was and is. So I know that that is not consistently how things go. We clipped it. You show 300 houses maybe, but you clipped it down to three, you
Sure.
know. And the short version is, Frank, that the agent themselves, comes in oftentimes with the wrong expectation. So as I'm hiring them, the conversation is, well, tell me about you. What are your goals? Because I need to find out your true goal, and if it's heavy or big enough to keep you going when it gets difficult in the business. Does that make sense?
That makes so much sense because that applies straight across the board. And if you don't know what
Hmm.
why is, right, then when those challenges come up, because inevitably they're going to come up, it's easy to say, well, I was only trying this, and then you already have one foot out the door, right? But
Yeah.
having clear expectations, then when those challenges arise, you could say, well, this is what's expected. Now, how do I get past that? And from speaking with you've kind of created a little mentorship program or
Hmm.
inside your office, which is kind of allowed people to excel in a
Hmm.
very challenging market. I mean, you are in a very, very one of the most competitive markets in the country. No,
Yeah. So, our market is very attractive. We're a coastal market. We have everything here. We got industry. So we have manufacturing because now we have, basically two automotive manufacturers in the area. We have, aeronautics manufacturer in the area because we have Boeing, Volvo, and a Mercedes plant here. We have, education because we have, one of the top ranked colleges in the country, here in Charleston, along with other secondary, facilities, a medical university, and we have the ports, and then we have a technology corridor. So basically, we're a great destination for people to travel. So our tourism is amazing. We're always on a number one list somewhere. So that brings people here, and people retire to this region. So we're hit on all cylinders, which makes it attractive for agents. I mean, we have 8,000 realtors in the Charleston market. I mean, it is a lot of people. I mean, basically on every corner you could bump into one. Um, that's just real. But out of that, there's a small segment, a much smaller segment of that number that are actually out here day to day, constantly producing.
Sure. So, and I'm going to bring this up because this has just been part and it's been in the news, right? So, and you're running a team, and this comes into uncertainty, and this is how it translates to just, I think, any business, right? But let's look at what's happened recently. NAR just had this huge settlement, right? $418 million. And there is going to be a difference in the way listing agreements read, right? In terms of, and how cooperating brokers get compensated or don't get compensated, right? So now, one of your agents, and I don't know your split of buyer agents or listing agents, but you can have listings in your MLS where before there was an offer of compensation. Now there will not be an offer of compensation out there, like public knowledge. You might have to call the other broker, or you will have to call the other broker to find out if there's any compensation, right? That doesn't have compensation to be in the MLS. And, and then at that point, you'd have to negotiate that fee. So that creates a degree of uncertainty for your business and probably for your agents. So when you have that, how do you handle that? Because I'm sure you probably had to have conversations, and you probably had some agents come to you like, what do we do?
So Frank, one of the misconceptions about this entire thing is that it is uniform. That's the common mistake. That's the myth that everyone has wrong. There is nothing common across our industry. And what I mean by that is there is no set fees. There is nothing across our industry to set. So I'm gonna talk specifically for a moment about South Carolina. South Carolina has buyer agency. We've had buyer agency agreements. So my agreements with our buyers always have compensation in them, because in order to have an agreement as a matter of law, you have to have competent parties. You have to have a lawful purpose. There has to be consideration, and consideration has to be some form of compensation. Doesn't necessarily have to be money. But again, that's one of the things that we consider to be consideration. So you have to have those things. So for us, it's not a significant change. There's only one thing in the grand scheme that changes, which is when I open MLS, it's not going to say what someone is compensating. Our listing agreements are not going to change, meaning that offer of compensation to a buyer's broker or a transaction broker or whoever, that is going to be in that listing agreement. However, as an agent, I'm not going to know what that compensation is as a buyer's agent. So I got to pick up the phone, otherwise communicate with the agent that listed the property to find out what that is. But my compensation is already in the agreement with my buyer to begin with. Sure. So one of a few ways we will figure out how we'll be compensated, whether that be through a seller concession, whether that be through the seller and their agent sharing compensation, or whether that will be through the buyer or otherwise. We will figure that out. So what I've counseled our agents on and my team on is very simple. Hey guys, we've been doing this. This is nothing new. The only difference is now, instead of you knowing what it's going to be when you show that property, you'll need to call the agent to find out.
But okay, and the way you say it, and if I'm sitting there listening to it, not knowing, that's clear and concise, and it makes sense, and it kind of takes away maybe some of that concern that you would have when you read this, because if you're, when you have people in your charge, whatever business you're in, there's going to be outside forces that are going to come in, whether it's, a market force or a legislative
Mhm.
change or ruling that's going to say, how is this going to impact my business, and the business that you run, and how is that going to impact me? Am I going to be able to, create the same type of living? Am I going to have the same type of opportunity? Now, you don't have that pathway of explaining without building up trust first with your team, right?
That's fair. Hmm.
Right. So how do you do that? Because leading up to that, when something like this happens, they've got to trust you as the leader that, hey, you've got the
Hmm.
pathway forward.
So one of the things that I immediately did, Frank, and let me interject something here. Here's something that most people don't think about. You're not worried about a building burning per se if it has sprinklers, because you know there's something there to mitigate the risk that you have. When an agent signs on with a broker, that's one of the things that they should be considering. Is their broker connected? Is their broker knowledgeable? What does their broker know that is going to be beneficial to them in the grand scheme or over the long term? And that's one of the things that when the settlement was announced, I was aware of it early. And I'll say early, but I was aware of it, basically soon as boom, 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 and into a number of meetings, and immediately, started to dissect, okay, what does this mean? What's the potential impact to our group? The first thing I told our agents was, hold up, stay off of social media, do not comment, and don't fall victim, because there's going to be a lot of misinformation, because people tend to be alarmists. They tend to panic. Everything is on fire, when the reality is it's just a flame over here and nothing else is burned yet. So if you mitigate it now while it's here, then you'll never have this full quote unquote 5 alarm fire that everyone is saying that you have. So immediately stop, pay attention, get an understanding. And that's one of the first things that I did with my group is, hey, I gave them the facts. I gave them, the take on it, and look, let's go. So basically let's get rank and file. If I'm telling you this and I'm telling you this is where I'm going and this is what I'm doing and this is how I'm going to handle this, then fall in line and let's all go the same path.
That's great, because I think one of the challenges that realtors or brokers have right now, there are so many brokers who just aren't aware or force or deal in misinformation. They're not plugged into what's happening inside that industry. And I think regardless of what industry you're in, we're in an environment right now that you cannot operate. Like, in certain ways you have to have blinders on and just do your business, but as a leader, you need to be aware of what's happening around you, right? So your people can keep their blinders on, knowing
Mhm.
that, hey, if I've got to pivot that direction, we're going to pivot it in the right way. And it sounds like you do that. Like, you emphasize that, what's going on, so your agents can focus on what they need to focus on, which is doing their business, working with their clients, whether they're buyers, whether they're sellers, and providing them with great service. But hey, I'm going to track the things that you don't have the time to do. So you can just I could point you in the direction and you can run.
So Frank, let me tell you a story. So good 20 so years ago, give or take a little bit. Matter of fact, probably a good 20 years ago, I'm on I-95. I'm coming south. I'm coming from Maryland back to South Carolina. I'm on the highway and it is pouring, I mean, torrential rain,
That
right?
hard southern rain, right? Like,
That
because
hard, yeah,
when
man.
it comes down. And I've been on those highways when that happens, and you just like, whoa, like, I've
Yeah,
got to pull
yeah,
off, because this is like serious, hard. I don't,
yeah.
I have traveled. I've never seen rain come down so hard as I do. And I
In
go
the
down a lot.
Carolinas.
And it is just a hard, like, hey, we're raining.
Yeah,
Okay.
when it hits the ground, it bounces up 5 feet.
Yeah, like,
Yeah,
we're
that's the kind
raining
of
now.
rain.
Like, get out of the way. All right, I'm just, rain is here. And
So I'm on the highway and it's dark. So it's nighttime. The rain is coming down because it literally was a storm coming through. And I got behind an 18 wheeler. I'm behind this truck. I mean, and he's moving as fast as I'm moving because I drive at the time speed limit is 55, might have been 60 on the interstate. I was doing a good 70, maybe 75, and this truck happened to be getting it about the same. So I found myself behind him. And Frank, the rain was coming down so hard that all I could see was his two brake lights.
Oof.
And I'm in a car, 18 wheeler, and I'm right there on him. I couldn't see anything other than his two brake lights. So this is what I did. What I did was I paid attention to his two brake lights, and I rode. And I rode for a good hour and change until the rain slacked up. And I took a look, and he moved over, and I took a little bit of lead, but he stayed in that left lane and just went right down the highway, and we was just barreling down the highway. That is what agents need to do with their broker.
Wow.
Take your broker's lead, just get right in file with them and go. Because what I knew was that I didn't need to be on brakes. I didn't need to slow down unless he did. If he slowed down, then I need to slow down. If he turned his signal on to change lanes, I need to turn my signal on to change lanes. And I stayed right there, and we went straight through that storm just like that. And I mean, literally, Frank, I couldn't look out the side of the window, couldn't see anything other than blurred lights as people went by the other direction. You couldn't see out the line. So my windshield wiper couldn't see anything behind me other than blurred lights through the rain. That was it. So that is how agents need to be, rank and file with their broker. Their broker needs to understand what's going on. That's very important. But rank and file, and let's just push through this storm.
Do you have that analogy trademarked?
No, I do not.
No,
But
so
matter
then
of
I
fact,
could use it. I could take it, right?
you
Driving.
can take it.
All right, all right. That is a great analogy, and I'm gonna use that. Right. So when you're driving through the storm, get behind the 18-wheeler. That's what
Exactly.
that is a great point. We've talked about you have the Exit Strategies podcast, and you were gracious enough. I've been on that program, fantastic program, but you set that up and you have a local radio program, like you broadcast locally, so on traditional radio, but you have a little different take on that Exit Strategies, right? So what was the reasoning of you saying, hey, I'm running a brokerage business, right? And successful, I'm getting agents, but here I'm doing something a little different. There's a little give back, right, to the community on that. So share a little bit about what that is as well.
So Exit Strategies, I tell people, is my baby. It's my give back to the community. Everything that someone in business does, the consumer base is quote unquote your tribe, right? But what are you giving them? What are you doing to enhance them? What value do you bring to them with no expectation, if you will, of a return? And Exit Strategies became that for me. I'd been on radio, on some other shows, I actually co-hosted a show. And then a platform opened up, a spot opened up for me to take that and focus it around real estate and financial literacy. So, what we focus on as a whole is educating consumers about finances, how to manage them, opportunities for growth, investment, and all that stuff. But we carry it around on the real estate side. And over the last year and change, we have really opened the show up to expand people's mindset. So we bring on people that are investing in all types of real estate, all niches. So the niches that we're talking about are things such as mobile home parks. So that was an amazing conversation that we had. And, that opens our audience up to, okay, there's different ways for me to be successful, for me to invest, for me to get involved. How do I start? I can be a part of a group that funds. I could be an individual that does, what have you. So we brought and had guests from all around the world. I mean, I have people that have been house hacking and live in foreign countries and house hack homes and properties in the States. I've had people that, invest in storage units. They convert them, that I've had people that build parking garages and all these different things, because real estate is such a unique industry. I refer to it as a diamond. Diamonds are multifaceted. Every time the light hits it, it looks different, casts a different view. And real estate is just like that. Every time you turn it, spin it, or look at it from a different angle, The view is different. So we want to give people as much exposure as possible for them to change their lives and their families' lives for generations to come.
You know what? You said that so eloquently, because I don't, I think we have a lack of financial education in this country that
Mm-hmm.
people, we, you have to, if you want this information or education, you have to search it out yourself, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we grew up in a generation, because I think you and I are probably the same age, but the former thought was, hey, if I worked at one spot, I had a pension or a 401k or a pension plan, and then Social Security, that would fund my retirement to have, and that doesn't exist anymore, right? And that's been the reality for a long time, but it doesn't exist any longer. And if you, as an individual, you have to take ownership of the fact that the only thing I can guarantee in my life is what I'm going to do for myself, right? Which is
Mm-hmm.
okay, right? But that means I have to go out there and search out that knowledge, and you break it down for people and in ways where they can understand it and realize the value,
Mm-hmm.
why they're doing it. And it's so important to make that first step, whether it's an investment property in Charleston or another area of South Carolina or a different market. There's different vehicles for you to get involved in to start creating that generational wealth, because regardless of where the market is today, it is still true. The number one way to pass wealth on from generation to generation is real estate.
So real estate is that one thing that does not renew. That you can't grow more dirt. You can't do it.
Can't do
You can't mix it up and make any more of it. And our show, when we started the show, before it was a podcast, it was, we're on an urban gospel station. So, and we interjected the faith-based component. Exit, for me is an action word. For some people it's the door, but and it could be the door. But for those who are looking at the door and want to do something, exit is an action word. It means that you got to do something. You got to leave where you are to go where you're going strategically. So exit strategies. Strategically, you need to leave from where you are and move forward. You need to move forward in a direction that's going to benefit you for generations to come. So being faith-based, Exodus, exit. I'm leaving here. The book of Exodus, where the people moved from one place to another. It was a long journey. Don't get me wrong. That's why we've been on the air for years,
Correct.
because it is a journey. But look here, Frank. I know that you are a great guy, love your family, and you love people, right? Anything that you're passionate about comes easily to talk about. You could talk about your family probably for weeks because you love them. So I love the people that listen to our show. I love the people in our community. I want to be of help and of service to them. And I'm going to talk to them for as long as I can talk to them, in hopes that what I talk about is something they can utilize, use, and will affect them going forward. And I'm always humbled to meet people in the street who have listened to or do listen to our show faithfully.
And it's not about getting, I think you know that not everybody's going to take action when they hear the information, but it's the
Mm-hmm.
one person or the two people or the three people that do, right? And
Mm-hmm.
that's how that spreads, because you don't know what
Mm-hmm.
that, by bringing out that message, what that could trigger in somebody and how they think about what they do and how they do it. And I think this goes back to your business practice when you're talking about the people listening to your program. It's, how do you set expectations, right?
Mm-hmm.
Set expectations for yourself, and then, like you're talking about, in Exodus and exit, to get to where you want to go, you
Mm-hmm.
have to take that first action, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, you can't expect somebody else to do it for you. You have to, if you want to get there, that first step has got to be you, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can't expect it just to be done, right? And I think that
Mm-hmm.
you do a good way of, you have a great way actually of kind of inspiring people to want to make that change.
So, and it's a labor of love. The show, it helps us with recognition, so people know about us, because of the show. They know about, myself. They know about our agents. I make it a point to engage our agents to be a part of the show. I interview them. And I've been doing this resident expert series because I have some of my agents that are niched into particular programs and things. So we've been doing this resident expert series and sharing that information on how you can achieve home ownership, how you can start to begin increasing wealth. I'm super excited because, my next resident expert is going to be in the field of probate. I have an agent that works in that field as a clerk for a probate attorney. So they are very versed in, helping people how to navigate that probate process because we have a tremendous amount of heirs property in our community. So with that, to be able to deliver that content, that information with no obligation, you ain't got to sign up and subscribe. You don't have to do anything other than turn on the radio or go to our website or open your favorite podcast app and look for Exit Strategies Radio Show. That's all you have to do. So if we're able to do that and keep that momentum going forward, then it becomes transformational. It transforms our community from a community, if you will, where the word tells us about being borrowers. It transforms us from a community of borrowers to a community of lenders. That is game changing.
Sure.
That is what we're working on. And we don't have to be we don't have to be the end all be all, but we just want to be a spark, if you will, a catalyst in that transition of moving people. That's what it's about, man.
That is what it's about, right? And that's why I think that's why we do what we do. For us, we listen, everybody does things. You want it to make sure it's economically beneficial. You have to make sure that you're supporting your family and so you can keep doing the things that you love doing. But you have to, like you said, you have to have a passion about it. We want to make communities better. Like that ticks a box for us because it's just not about, economically beneficial, but it's really pleasing to be there and knowing that if I bring my family to what we're doing in improving a community that we own and transforming that community, whether it's with infrastructure or home improvements or improving the residents' lives, we've had an impact on those people that we serve, right? And ideally that's really created value to move forward. And that's what you're doing. And it sounds like you're doing it, day in and day out, whether it's in your brokerage or through your educational platform, because that's really what you have. It's an education platform. So what's the expectation we should have about Corwyn? Where are you headed next? What's your, big goal, 24 months, 36 months down the road?
So 24, 36 months. Our next phase is I am a firm believer in making sure that your store has inventory. And one of the challenges that we've seen over the last few years is inventory as a whole. Interest rates, keep people at times from making a move up. If you have a rate that's here and the next rate is here, if it's not a required move, it's not necessary, then sometimes it slows the creation of inventory. But there's still a need because there's people that want to be in home ownership that are not because the door hasn't opened for them or the opportunity has not appeared for them to enter in because the people that are just inside the door won't move. So the next thing for us is the ability to create the inventory. So we're working towards development. We have development partners, we have building partners, we have financial partners, and now it is an opportunity that I see on the horizon to essentially put our arms out, reach, and pull all those people closer in so that we're more of a collective, more of a unit, and we can take someone from, hey, I want a home, to all the way through. We can put the entire thing together from the standpoint of financing, development, building, and everything. So we have everything in one place, and not necessarily to say we want to be per se a one-stop shop as much as we want to have the ability, no matter what the situation, to assist people. And I'm super excited about it because we are closer and closer to it every day. Been working on it for the last several months, getting some ideas, and now I've laid out that plan, and now we're moving along that road. So within the next 12, 24, definitely 36, that's where we intend to be.
That's incredible. That's incredible. And I want to hear more about that progress and see what's happening. And so this way we could follow that. And Corwyn, someone wants to get more information from you. They want to hear your podcast, or they're down in the Charleston or in that market. How do they reach you? How do they get in touch with you? How can they listen to your podcast?
So I'm fairly easy to find. So if you want to check out our podcast, guys, it's Exit Strategies Radio Show. All right, Exit Strategies Radio Show. You can get us there at a .com, exitstrategiesradioshow.com. You can search your favorite podcast app there. You also find us on social media in that same or similar format. Again, Exit Strategies Radio Show. And you can find all that information there. You can get my contact information. Frank, I tell people, treat me like candy at Halloween. Just pass me out. Just get me around. I'm perfectly fine with that.
This has been, I think, an incredible show. You're just an incredible person to talk with, and thank you for being here.
You.
The only thing that I wish that is, if my partner Eric was here, and he's not, because he's on a trip for us right now. But so we're gonna have to have you back on with him here, right? So he can hear some of your story, and I think you and him would really, really get along. But Corwyn Melette, everyone, Exit Strategies podcast. If you want to find out more, check him out. He's got a world of knowledge. And really, if you're an agent in that area and you've got questions, you should definitely check out Corwyn Melette and hear what he has to say. Corwyn, thank you so much for being part of the program. I think you added a world of advice and knowledge, and you definitely gave me an analogy that I'm going to use again. So thank you very much for that.
You're more than welcome. Frank, thank you so much for having me on the show.
Thank you. And guys, for listening, I appreciate you listening to the MHP Exchange podcast. You can find out more at the mhpexchange.com. That is the place for opportunity, news, education, and of course, entertainment in the MHP space. Go to the mhpexchange.com and check out Chat MHP, which is the industry's first personalized AI agent that we have at the mhpexchange.com. And if you like this program, give us a review on iTunes or Spotify. We love to hear your feedback. Thank you very much. Frank Rizzo with the MHP Exchange podcast.